This is my project about mining the Metropolitan Fire Service. The data you might have looked at, it contains 5 years worth of calls answered by the Metropolitan Fire Service, and it's got an ID number, date and time, station and some detail about the call. It doesn't look to be a very rich data set, but in fact it is a very rich data set, and combined with other data can provide all sorts of insights. For this project I decided to use Julia. Now down to technical stuff. What I'm trying to do is develop a logistic regression model, and this is a model that works out the probability that there'll be a fire call in any 1 minute, and that's determined by doing a sum and plugging into this equation you see on the left with the 1 over 1 plus e to the minus complex. We should actually at this point add a reference, because I'm using work based by Gary King on logistic regression in rare event data. And what do we mean by rare event? Well, here what I'm doing is that we have all of the calls made by the Metropolitan Fire Service, but I add to them all the calls they didn't do, the calls that actually didn't happen. So in a given period, if they had a call, we'll use that, and if they didn't, we'll make up a non-call. And so we then have a set of calls and non-calls. Get a series of coefficients, and the key thing to note here, and just zoom in so that you can see, is that the significance of them is, well, basically very significant. Now the factors used, the day of the week, the hour and the month, may not be very significant, but this technique obviously shows clear promise in dealing with the MFS data. One of the problems I did find that I had to reduce it by a factor of 100, because 30 seconds processing time times 100 is not really enough time during GovHack. But it certainly is a very powerful technique. So what we can see here is that later in the week there are more calls. As the hour increases there are more calls, and as we move through the year there are less calls. And again, all terms are significant. And but then if we added the meteorology, then we could see the effect of increasing temperature. Now why might you want to do that? Well, what about if we had climate change? Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but if we can see a link between increased temperature in Adelaide, then the MFS will have a higher workload, and that's something they'd really like to know about. In the same way, weather such as rain and wind might affect them. There might be feelings, but here we can take real data and produce real results. Thank you for watching this presentation.